We've moved through quite a lot of basic categories now, and this is the idea, this is the pedagogy at the moment, to cover a range of basic categories that we can then come back to and add more things to and add more miscellaneous techniques and combine them together in various combinations. So the next category that we want to look at is the baseball bat style category, holding it the other way. And it's a similar thing. We're not going to use this for the most part. We do use it sometimes, I have to say, and also using this one where we kind of stop the force this way. But for the most part we're not, so we can hold it a little bit higher up, and it's the bottom hand that follows this rule. For even though the hand that's here, that's a little bit further up, is going to be the dominant hand, whichever way we do it, and we need it both ways. It's the bottom hand that follows this rule of it being like, you know, this, a palm's width and a bit from the elbow. So we can kind of feel it's the natural way if you were going to use something like this baseball bat. Of course, a baseball bat doesn't have a big bit sticking out at the end of it, so we have to be careful of this. It's an offensive weapon and we want to use it like that. So we commence in our basic Yiquan stance. Our hands are like this, and as I mentioned in the first segment, we use this Shaolin style grip that you would normally use with a gun, a full length stick. And we use this grip like this, and this is our starting posture. We keep these elbows flat out like this, not in like this because it's too hard to then do all the things that we need to do. But we keep everything back this way. And there's another reason for having the elbows out like this, and that's because we're going to elbow with these techniques as well, but we're going to look at that separately. So we start like this, and we remember first of all that this end is an offensive weapon, so I want to look at those first rather than the obvious strikes. And the first thing we can do, remember when I talked about releasing force in every direction, well, standard Yiquan idea, release force in any direction. So we're here this way, we're assuming our target is this way because we're facing them head on, but we release force this way, just out with the butt of the stick. And you can just watch my routing is like turning the back foot and pushing out. So that's our stop dead. Hit, and getting too far with ourselves. But we can add on from the hip. So, you know, our natural strike we think is this way, stop dead, which we'll look at in a second. But we can hit and stop exactly the same principle this way. Up, step, and we can do this in different directions. We can change from our guard, yeah. And all we do then is we pull it in rather than just going straight across like that. Pull in and push out. But I quite like this. You know, you're facing this one, someone comes in and you target them that way, even though you're facing that way. Release force in any direction. And now that I've said that, you can probably guess, well, you can do it the other way as well. So, you know, I'm facing this way, one hit, but my enemy isn't that way, my enemy's that way. So you can just hit. See, I'm using my body weight as well. See the routing again, it's this snaky Yiquan moving to the side that we do like that. We can keep releasing force that way, and we can do it both ways. Hit forward, hit backward, or we can change in any direction that we want if we can release force. And maybe I hit forward, then hit down this way, releasing force this way. So now I'm moving forward and hitting back this way. Now I'm going to move to the side and hit back. Now I'm going to move to the side. Yeah, Yeah, this is just using our different footwork, moving in, look at it in another video by the way, the footwork and the way we use it, just for everything. Moving within a small circle, moving within a big circle. It's classic wushu theory. Li Dong Feng, maintain the centre of the circle. We just move our footwork around this circle. So if we can from our posture, if we can release force, stab out, any direction, like low, any direction within the, anything else, and we need to start using our footwork in a more advanced way, or thinking more economically. So I don't, if my opponent is behind, I don't have to do something fancy like that. It's too hard to maintain the balance. Thinking more economically, once it's there, it's easier. But we can also use release force. In other words, we don't just have to put. We can hit out this way, and this does anchor against the neck again. Remember, it does anchor against the neck. If you're just hitting into someone's face, might well be worth hitting. Hitting this way, hit back. Look at this. This is this chopping hack that I talked about in an earlier segment. The standard chopping hack, like 1, 2, use of the same structure, and using this quarter routine where it comes at 1 and then 2. And hit and stop. So all our Yiquan principles are coming together now. We can do it. I mean, someone could, they could grab you or anything. They could be hitting their hand. Who knows? Again, this is the principle of transferable skills. We don't need to think like, well, why would we do it like that? All we need to think is, our core Yiquan skills allow us to release force in any direction whatsoever. So we are ready for whatever it may be. Who knows? You want to hit in this way. Oh, someone going for a takedown and you hit in the back of the head. You want to hit in any direction. You don't want to worry too much about what's that for? What would you use that for? First of all, we want to be able to do it. Then we think about, well, what are the best things in different technical scenarios? So these are really, I'm using because the weight of the stick exponentially adds force to the weapon. If you know your Leibniz, you know that it doesn't just double the more you use speed. I think it triples the more you use speed. So we can get a lot more power for our short movement by the weight of the stick hitting in. So we can do some of these very short movements that, maybe just whacking someone right on the hand, or in the face. I'm not saying it's necessarily going to knock them out. That's why we have this 3-stage combination concept for our self-defense. Hit again, just keep moving in with the 3 or 4. We don't want to keep moving in by this, is what I'm saying. You can aggress, it's a contradiction, I know. Aggress 3 or 4 moves, or maybe in being 3-dimensional, 3 or 4 moves, then you're thinking about out. That's when you're hitting and trying to move back out of the way. Give people a chance to back off. Sun Tzu says, never attack an army on all 4 sides. Give people a chance to back off. That improves your odds as well. So if we can do 1, 2, then of course we can do hitting out. Look at the difference now. If I hit in, look at the routine difference. If I hit in this way, this is equivalent to across. The routine is equivalent to across. Hitting in this way. If I hit in this way, it's equivalent to a jab. Yeah, again, I'm using the shifting to the side step. Again, that's an intuitive skill, because I'm thinking my target is directly in front of me. So to hit into the side, I need to come out quite far. 1, 2, and I don't want to do that. I want to do a much shorter, faster movement if they're close range. And the easiest way to do that isn't to go 1, 2. It's to step out with the and hit in this way. But conceivably, you know, you can do it in any possible direction. One, two, any possible direction. Don't underestimate, by the way, how much energy that takes to release force like that. I mean, it looks like those very small movements have a massive amount, you know, using your whole body to release force. That's when I'm proper getting sweat on it. It really takes a lot of energy to do that. Our next posture, as you can probably guess, from our basic start point, is just a basic hit. And we're going to now kind of revisit everything that we've done before. Instead of doing it this way, because there just isn't enough control for the most part. We want to do, if we're going to do one-handed with these, generally speaking, we're going to do swings because it's just too much to ask to try and control it. We're going to do two-hand and we're going to stop and start. And this hand is just like if you were this kind of standard Yiquan elbow, like where you just push it and you hit in this way. That's just that posture. It's exactly that posture. And this posture is just exactly when you hit in with the shoulder. And just hitting in and stopping at the centre line this way. And just as before, exactly the same principle applies low, thigh or kneecap, low, and again exactly the same principle. The butt of the stick comes past the body, and we stop at the centre line, hit and stop, because we're going to change it to different postures, so we hit and stop. And this way. Hit, and then we can change. And look, when I change, I'm not changing this way. I'm changing flat. 1, 2, to come back up. 1, change flat. I'm not bringing it past my body in most cases unless I do it wrong. Flat, and then change. 1, and look at the routing change. This comes flat. Change, and the routing changes. So many different things to think about. And I can understand why people would start to think, well, that's too fussy, there's too much to think about, and it doesn't work like that at all. And again, this thing of like, people who can't do this kind of stuff and pretending that, well, secretly, it's all closed door, we do all that closed door, and no. This is about the logic of each one. If you think of it as like a computer program that you install into your system, and as your intent connects with your body, your guided will, as Yao Zhongzheng calls it, begins to interconnect with your body until you realise that those two things are not separate, that will, intent fills the whole body. The logic of these movements just starts knitting together intuitively. You don't have to think about them, and you don't even have to learn them in most cases. It just, or you learn it one way and then it just passes on into another way. It interlinks as an intuitive system that you download and then unfold and then practically use. So don't worry. I know there's loads of little different things, but this computer program, if you want to call it that, does most of that intuitively. It's part of the wonderful structural genius of each one. Not only can you infinitely create and unfold in different ways, but the postural requirements for doing that also just seem to be there. They just seem to come naturally. Again, not everyone has that ability to the same level, I have to say. It's like music or anything, there's different levels, because it's creative, so different people are creative in different ways, and some people have that creative genius, like Yao Zhongzheng, and some people don't quite have it in the same way, but you can still learn to play the guitar really amazingly well, even if you can't write a brilliant song, so don't worry. So that's just introduced our 45 degree and our 45 degree low strike. 1, 2. 1, 2. Again, we can do them this way. We can use this chopping strike. 1. If we want to use a floating hack, that's a lot harder this way, by the way. So remember when I talked about you know, 1 and then 2. Because of the weight of the stick, you need a bigger movement. So the floating hack this way is like, call it a helicopter hack, because you've got to hit, well, you can see why. You've got to do this with it. And that's not necessarily faster than just doing the standard chopping hack, but it could have a, you know, well, it could conceivably have a use. So our basic strike. And again, we just add in all our basic steps, moving backwards, forwards, to the side, and the same the other way. We can start adding in the little things that we were doing before, from the stab. Exactly the same down. You can even stab down and change into the strike. Same the other way. And this movement flows quite naturally into, we'll do strike into strike first. So remember, when we do this movement, when we're not bringing it really close to the head, because it's going to clip the head, we're giving it a good wide berth. One wide berth here. Then it can neck roll, or it can just come round completely. Same way. Look, I change hands over when I change sides. In flat. Exactly the same hitting down. I'll introduce this stab a little bit more in a moment. So facing off, don't give it away by the way, looking down. Just exactly the same. One doesn't really even touch the back. Don't risk clipping ourselves with it. It's just a big round swing like this. You can really just go with it, and if you can use it's something we do more in sword because it's a much heavier weapon. We use a really heavy sword. Use your spiral routing. So one, whip it round. One, whip it round. Let's get this real slingshot effect on it, which really adds to like 20-30% more force. I can really feel it when I do it. Rather than, for example, 1, 2, 3, 1, circle. Look at my body moving. 1. Look at the routing. Circle and circle back and then circle back. Getting that slingshot effect on it. So remember when we did 1, 2, and we used this taking the bottom out of the stick to swing the power across. Now we don't do that with it's not the same movement for the double-handed baseball bat grip. 1, you can do it, but normally you do it when you miss, or you're doing it to dragon tail it. If you do it with force this way, 1, you can feel you can't just change, you lose power by doing that in a way that you don't when you do it single-handed this way. So this way you want to do it very structural. 1 structure, 2 structure, 1, 2. And just go with that. Let it just bounce a little bit. 1 and catch it and take it. Let it just bounce a little bit. 1 and just catch it and take it the other way. Because we're not bringing it right back like that. Just 1, 2. Just a double structural strike. 1, 2. Just changing the routine. 1, 2. You see, we're using our body weight to add force. I mean, Fa Li isn't magic powers. It's physiological. As Yao Zongzun says, it's kinetic force. Using the physiology of the body, using the laws of physics. 1, all my weight's going that way, and all my weight's going the other way. And it's exactly the same. Do it right-handed. Notice I'm changing my grip. It's exactly the same when we go 1, 2. It's a structural movement. It's not. If we start trying to do this, we start getting into this cricket bat motion, which is the swing is too long for the dead time, and the amount of time the butt of the stick is, or the pointy end of the stick is pointing towards your gut is too long, and things get kicked up. People are kicking in, running in, things get kicked up and kicked in. It doesn't have to be a deadly strike, it's just enough to ping the stick out of your hand and just distract everything. So getting low, we use this 1, 2, and look. 1, 2. The way it's done this way, the stick, it comes reasonably near the knee, I suppose. Well, not near, but points towards it. But it's not this, where it's in line with your stomach all the while like this. It's 1 and then kind of flat. The structure is kind of flat. 1, 2. And we very often use this rather than shifting in, shifting back motion with it. But you can move in just the same, just to create more safe distance with it, that's all, particularly because your head is leaning in towards the target of the enemy. Although to be fair, it's not going to make that much difference, just moving back a little bit, but you can do it in any way. You can do it shifting just the same. Hit structural rather than flow, Then when we switch, our equivalent to the offside posture where we do it this way is just over the shoulder. Start this way, change left-handed. So left-handed stance, left hand is on top, even though right foot is forward. And it's this way, and then everything else just applies in exactly the same way. Just the handling might feel a little bit different because the left hand is over the top. And if we were to change this way, we would change this way. Not in the middle of a combination, I have to say, but as a start point. Again, it's very structural way of moving rather than a swing. 1 and minimising the amount of time that if you do it like that, swing, see how much time the swing, how much time the butt of the stick swings past the body. And another important thing to say about this hit and stop is that we expect to hit. That's the point, we expect to hit. And we have an expectation to hit. We're not training to swing like you might see in some stick systems. We're not expecting to, yeah, it might, but we don't want to train like that, because what happens when we do hit? When we do hit, and all our training's been about swinging, when we do hit, we want to change straight away into something else. So we train for that. And this is really the only way to do that, to train as you would expect, because it doesn't matter if it misses, we can change into something else. Whereas if you train to swing, it does matter if you hit, because you've been training to swing. And you need to know things like, when it pings back, and control how to move in straight away with another strike. So everything's the same way from all our previous training, only it's a more structural movement. 1, look at the rooting. 1, it's the lead foot, for this anyway. 1, 2. Something to notice, don't have your hands too close together, because your thumb and this part of your hand will rub together in an uncomfortable way. It'll push against your thumb, so not too close. So you put them together and then just make a little gap if you have enough time to think about that. Moving in this structural fashion. So the next thing that we want to learn is this slide down, this grip drag. We call it a grip drag, and you can do it this way a little bit better because the end of the stick is tapered out with a tapered stick. I mean, you're lucky if you find something like this, aren't you, in an emergency. But with a tapered stick, because it goes thicker, you just have a little bit more. You can do just a little bit less chance of sliding off like that if you do it the other way. And this grip drag is really useful for multiple different things. And from our basic posture, we can, remember we did different kinds of palm drags. One was an active palm drag, where we bring the stick to the strike point, to the hit point. We can do exactly the same thing here. And just bring the active grip drag up to the strike point. brutal. It's a different order of violence when you to the normal stick, 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 tip, tap, tip. It's a different order of violence altogether. Either way. So grip drag, stay on an angle into the stomach. We can do it any which way we want. And again, any kind of footwork moving back. 1, 2, using this quarter routine because there's not enough time to 1, pull back, fully go into the same strike again. So that quarter routine, this time just off the front foot. 1, 2. As we shift back, poking in. So now there's something really interesting that we need to talk about. You can of course from the stab this way, you can of course just hit in with the butt of the stick. That's not all that powerful, but we can use a little technique and cool little technique to get a bit of extra power that I just did before. So after the strike, we slide back. We use the grip slide back again to slide down the. You have to press, but the only danger is hitting your other hand off. But that seems pretty unlikely, unless you got a loose grip, and then I think you possibly could catch it too low down, but slide it down with the, and conceivably you could hit your hands together too hard, but it's a bit of practice. Those are nothing considerations. 1, to get this from a very short space of time, using the laws of physics, just to push in the, from a, left-handed, so left hand is on top, and with doing a double. Right-handed, so right hand is on top. Here. So as well as doing an active grip drag, where we kind of bring it in to the grip point, we can do more of a passive one where we come back. And it can be used to disguise the distance or the range. People don't see you setting it up in that way. Into the side, and it's a totally different way of thinking about violence with a stick. It's brutal and chaotic. It's totally for self-defense in an emergency. Into the side right hand. And boom, 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 boom. Just keep going. You can also do it to the back, by the way. Slightly smaller grip drag and hit. Hit around this one. The benefit of that, rather than just going like that, is you could conceivably get a little bit more distance on it. To do that, we need a slightly different technique where we do a grip drag and then we push up, close the grip drag. So lift and then push in. Like doing that, and we'll look at that in a minute. Just to get a little bit more distance on it. I mean, how you know you need that distance, I don't know, but you assume that, just for the principle, sake of the principle, we'll assume you do know you need to do that, because we can do it in other ways where we do know the distance. Yeah, rather than just trying to do, rather than going 1, 2, which then curtails your own body shape, curtails the strike. We can, realise we need to go a bit further. If that's not enough, we can change, and we could even do it to the, and change back this way. But we can do that from, say we've hit in here, and your opponent has moved back further than you're going to go, even if you start, they've gone even further back. You don't necessarily just want to go with the full stab, one arm stab, which can be, it's quite loose and dangerous. You can do this, which gives a little bit of extra support. Just poking this way. A little extra support with back to the grip drag back the other way. Oh. It's something to keep to particular targets, by the way. Again, the principle that the strength of a strike is partially determined by the strength of the target, so you don't necessarily want to go into someone's gut like that. It's kind of a weak, for the target to hit, you can imagine it's going to ping and ball. Just a bit of a stab into the face. A bit of a straight stab into the face, that's going to do a bit of damage. The next thing that will likely occur to you is, can we do it left-handed but in our offside stance? And yeah, but it's not quite as easy this way. Certainly this way we can do. There's a danger that it could get knocked out in this way, which to us, if someone just runs in, that's really not good for us. So it's not something, generally speaking, that you think like would be a good posture for the offside. We'd rather do this just grip dragging in rather than the poke. But if you're going to do that, probably better off just going for the double-handed poke in any case. From the offside, we can just do everything like we did before. And look, because it's on an angle here, 1, 2, we have to think about our footwork in a little bit of a different way. So going round, or one round, and then this little snaky Yiquan step, moving back this way. Right-handed offside, so right hand on top of the left leg forward. And again, just moving around using this exactly the same, poking with the end of the stick. Short range, obviously. Our next useful little technique, something we've looked at before the other way, and that's the poke. We did a single-handed poke this way. Now we can do a double-handed just straight in this way. Look at the routing, this kind of turning this way routing to get the force. And of course we can do the grip drag into the end. Look at the routing, back foot as per, and then change. But we can also do it without the grip drag, just a straight. It can be a lot faster. Just straight in and more intuitive. Right-handed. Stick fully past the body. Again, we expect to make contact, so if we're going to make contact like that, we expect it to be pushed in. So we bring it past the body. And even when we're doing this, again, this unity of square and circle, crooked posture. Straight in. And the faster you can switch between structures, the faster you can get this. Yeah, it's only a little thing, it's only a couple of inches on this end, but my whole body is twisting into it. It's what we mean by whole body power. And this is what Yao Zhong's meant when he said, like, people just see a tiny movement and they can't believe the amount of force that's in it. But actually the force of my whole body doing that is far more than the force of my arm doing that. It's far more, all added up together. It just looks small. It's like putting on ½ inch of fat all the way around. It's like only ½ inch, but you add it all together, it's quite a big game. Then we can change into our other techniques that we've learned, the grip, drag and stab. See what I'm using these like little snaky, rather than trying to do more big step footwork, these little snaky, just Yiquan genius into there. It's also getting some slingshot energy into the strike, which is a genius idea. Simple and effective. And this one we can do the other way, from the offside. So the left hand is on top, right hand is out in front, and we strike. Again, this is the routing, it kind of goes back a bit like this. Do it that way. This way into the... Also helps to pull the stick a little bit out of the way. Now to be clear, we can do it this way. That's not a... It's just a much weaker, and we're going to... Better off going this way with one of the old xingyiquan spear techniques. If we're going to do that. This way, this kind of routing this way, as opposed to this way. Or just fast off the spot, boom, straight into the, changing to the grip, drag and stab. See, straight back up into the, that's a funny one to go for, by the way, the leg. As with any leg technique, even with a leg kick or anything like that, and people can just rush in, punch you, you've taken the guard and focus away from the head hunting area, or even if they come in for the the low takedown, you're forced to use a bit of leverage or something like that. So back up into there. So that's something we've not really discussed yet, because we've talked about hit and stop, and that's it's not a lie, it's just a method of instruction that first of all we want you to get hit and stop, and then we start drilling things like bringing back into the guard posture. But usually we want that after 2 or 3 hits, but we begin it by learning. If you learn that first, it skews your hit and stop skills. But if you come this far, it's probably time to start learning, I suppose. So yeah, 1, 2. Look, this is a variation. 1, 2. So half grip slab. So instead of going, never go really right to the end, but instead of going here, we come halfway up the stick. And this can just give a little bit of extra support. So it comes halfway up the stick. Back into there. And I'm ready, even my front foot is up. I'm ready to just everything to add extra force into the strike. Attitude as a weapon. Another way of using the half grip strike is a half grip strike with screwing force. So it comes halfway up and then we change like this, hitting like this. This is a very close range move, like for hitting a hand or something like that. Screw down into the strike this way. It's a bit unorthodox. Usually don't want to do that because it's going to come in the face. The target was just said was the right call, believe me. Half strike. Half ball straight in. Half grip slide and screwing force. Earlier I mentioned that we want to use this more structural movement. We don't want to use this flow, generally speaking. It's not quite the same when we're 1, 2. Has a different, you feel the weight of the stick is different. You need to do different things to generate force. Here we want to control it because it adds so much extra force, it's unbelievable in a tapered stick. So we use this structural way of moving. But now we want to look at an exception to that, the way we drag and tail it, which we introduced in a previous episode where we flow one way and we change and hit the other. Only we want to do it diagonally, we'll do it from our offside left hand posture, so right leg is forward, left hand on top, and we hit up on a diagonal like this, like a baseball bat hitting it out of the park. And it's not a coincidence that the postures look very similar. It's a human body. You know, an average able-bodied human, I know not everyone is an average able-bodied human, well, no one's average really, are they, but the average able-bodied human uses the physical form to, you know, if you are looking at professional level in anything, to maximise efficiency. So it's natural that, you know, I want to hit that point with force, a baseball bat player wants to hit that point with force. It's natural that we're going to assume very similar, you know, it's like a baseball bat player, it's natural that we're going to assume very similar postures. And again, just think about the genius of Shaolin Chuan, or Shaolin Gunshu, Shaolin stick play. You know, millennia before baseball was invented, they've already worked out this is the appropriate posture. So we swing in, this is our flow. I'm not even intending to hit anything at this point, is the reality. Just flow and then change. One, take the bottom out. And look, this goes over my head, it doesn't come near my face at all. Flow strike. Flow into the strike and the structure. Flow into the strike and the structure. Right? Flow, strike. Flow, strike. See, it's coming quite far past the head is my target point. Flow is coming quite far past, there's so much power in it. That's what I'm having to do to control the force.